Live the Goals Podcast, your place for motivation, life lessons, and laughter. Don't settle for wandering through a mundane life. Instead, let us help you reach your goals and live a fulfilling life doing what you love. Our guests know what it's like to live with purpose and laugh along the way. Warning, if you're a stick in the mud, you definitely need to stick around. Loosen up your ties, kick off your high heels, and let's get to it with your host, Dale Richardson.
All right, friends and family, we're back again with another great episode of Live the Goals Podcast. And today we've got Leigh Martinuzzi, and Leigh is the hidden why guy. He's an expert in lifestyle design and helps people go from living a life they hate to living a life they love. He's a speaker, a coach, writer, and podcaster. And as a corporate senior executive, Leigh realized that it wasn't the life he wanted and decided to design his life to give him more freedom, fulfillment, and happiness. He has successfully transitioned from a dissatisfying existence to a life with a greater purpose. And now he pays it forward by using what he learned to help other people like you, friends and family, do the same. Hey, Leigh, are you ready to help us set and reach goals that matter?
Absolutely, man. Let's do it.
Let's do this. I'm excited. Leigh, I gave them kind of your formal bio, but I'd love for you to share a little bit more about who you are.
Yeah, look, I'm still learning too, and still teaching and sharing what's helping me in life and find more purpose in life. So I'm still sharing. But who I am, mate, I'm a regular dude. I come from Australia. I had a pretty good upbringing, nothing out of the ordinary. Been, quite an independent sort of guy, seeking money. I had entrepreneurial sort of aspirations when I was a young kid. I used to make little trinkets and stuff and sell them at school, so I was a pretty rich little kid. But mate, yeah, just a normal upbringing. And then I got on the path after school. You sort of get let go into the wider world and have to start making decisions for your own. And a lot of people are familiar with that, I'm sure. And I chose to go the university route. So I stuck to a degree, and long story short, I did the degree, finished, and didn't really know what I was meant to do with it. I think I chose that path initially because I had no idea. And it gave me some sense of security and some sort of sense of belonging. So
right.
I did that, and then got to the end and was released again. I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to go traveling. So I did that. And that's a great thing. I'd recommend anyone, go traveling for 3 years and do university, to be honest. So I went traveling for about 4 years, went home, and mate, I got into corporate and found myself doing the corporate thing. I was earning some good money, got a good position pretty easily. So I was pretty fortunate about that.
Mm-hmm.
And, lots of responsibility. I really enjoyed many aspects of the work, got paid well. I could buy heaps of sorry about the language, but I could buy. And I got to a point, I had a transition between one company and another. And then I got to a point where I was just I actually remember I came home one night, and I did this pretty regularly, actually. I'd drive home in the evening and just get a couple of beers at the local bottle shop. And I used to go down to this jetty near my house, and I'd just sit there and have a beer and look over the water.
Mm-hmm.
Just reflect and think. And it was that one night I was just sitting there, and I wasn't really satisfied with life, I was honest. And I just looked out and I said, is this it? I mean, is this all that there is? Is this for me? Right. And the answer was no. And so as soon as you answer those sort of questions to yourself, that's when you sort of subconsciously start doing searches and subconsciously start doing behaviors to try and change the situation.
Right.
And that's what happened to me, mate. And I jumped ship. I was looking for more freedom at the time. And I thought that was what it's all about, freedom in life. I thought that's what everyone wants.
Yeah.
And I found a role that I could do that I was essentially my own boss. I had lots more freedom. I could, go to birthday parties or kids events, whatever it might be. I had that freedom. I had more holidays. I had about 8 weeks that first year in that new career.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool. And then about 3 years after that, I bought a scooter. I was a real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a scooter to deliver flyers to self-promote myself. And I was stuffing them in letterboxes one day, and I used to do about 5,000 a week. So it was probably a half a day on a Wednesday I used to do it.
Right.
And it's pretty cool. I could listen to audiobooks and podcasts and stuff like that. So I was filling my mind with good stuff and, again, turning a sort of mundane task into something pleasurable.
Right.
Which you can do with most things, I think. But anyway, I got to a point and I just had to stop. I took off the helmet and I just thought, what am I doing? I'm stuffing flyers in people's letterboxes, and I just thought, this is rubbish. Like, people are going to get annoyed with this. People, who gives a rats, you know? And is it going to matter when I'm there on my deathbed saying goodbye? Like, is it really going to matter to me? And that's when I realized the piece of fulfillment is essential. So I had the freedom and the fulfillment piece, and I was trying to put the puzzle together. I'm going, well, what is it? What is it about life, you know? And I've realized now that it's happiness. I believe everyone wants happiness. And that's about a deeper sense of happiness. It's not the happiness that comes from, you know, buying the new flat screen TV or going to a party with friends. It's a deeper sense of calmness that comes. And so I've been working on that ever since. And what really drives me to do that, and I just wrote in my journal this morning about it, it's suffering. I hate suffering myself. Everyone hates suffering, obviously, but I really have a deep connection with that, and I just want to reduce the suffering as much as I can in my life. I want to not inflict it in other people's lives, and I hate seeing other people suffer. So my goal really is, I'm a very compassionate guy, is to just help do that in whatever way I can.
Right.
And I still am figuring out how I'm going to actually do that. I do some speaking. Obviously, I do the podcast. I do coaching in bits and pieces, but I'm looking for how I can do more of that, how I can really make a greater impact. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, thank you. And, you know, you said something. The folks that listen to my podcast know I usually start with a funny story, but I do want to comment on that because just so much knowledge you kind of dropped in there and just slid in. You know, you started off and ended with talking about the fact that you're still learning. And, you know, I just want to point out, I get nervous if I get around somebody who isn't learning anymore, right? If they're trying to teach people or guide people or lead people and they aren't learning anymore, I get nervous because, like you said, if you want to make a greater impact, then you've got to keep getting better as well, and got to get, you know, keep getting closer to what it is that you're looking for. And as we grow and develop, there's always more for us to learn. And so I love that you start off with just saying, hey, I'm still learning and getting better, but I can teach the people that are not where I'm at yet. And so that's a pretty awesome thing to hear you say.
Yeah, cool.
So let's jump back to what I usually do, Leigh. I always ask my guests to start off with something that made you laugh recently. I just want everybody to remember that, hey, things happen in life, good or bad. I mean, things happen in life, and good or bad, we got to remember to laugh every once in a while. So what made you chuckle recently?
Man, it's a hard one. I don't really have a joke for you, but if I can think back, yesterday I was sitting here. I had my day planned, and recently, when was it? It was about 5 days ago, my phone decided to stop working, so the screen just went black. Oh. I could hear the phone working in the background, like turning it on and off, and I could hear, you know, vibrate and stuff, but I couldn't see anything. And, you know, that used to really frustrate the heck out of me, but now I'm just like, oh, well, it's probably a good thing. I need to be a sort of minimalist, and I decided to, you know, just leave it, and I had some time yesterday to, you know, go to find a shop in Japan somewhere to help me fix the problem. So I just left it for 5 days, and it was a really cool 5 days, to be honest, without the phone. Like, just, it's amazing. So I'm going to do more of it. I haven't figured out exactly quite how to do that yet. But anyway, I was sitting here, I had the plan, I had all my tasks for this morning, in the morning, you know, knocked out. And then I had a plan to go into I planned to go to the pool. So I go to the pool at about 1 o'clock every Wednesday to do some swims. And then I was going to go to the shops after that. And that was just, you know, it was a bit of a headache because I don't really know where to go here in Japan. And it might have just taken a bit of time. And I have, you know, things to do like we all do. Anyway, so I grabbed my phone, touched it, screen's still not working, no surprises there. And I came in and I plugged it into my computer because I had a quick call or something to do first, or I wanted to charge it up. I don't know what it exactly was. But anyway, I plugged it into my computer and I was sitting there, I was doing some work, and then about 5 minutes passed, and I look over and the little Apple logo appeared on my iPhone. It just miraculously started working again. So that, you know, it's not a real laugh out loud sort of moment, but it certainly put a smile on my face. And I just thought, you know, it's just life, man, and how it works. And I could have got frustrated with that phone. I could have spent all day Saturday trying to fix it, you know, creating impact on that day that I had other things on. I could have let that situation control me, but I just controlled it, and eventually it worked again. And hey, that put a smile on my face, and it's still working right now.
It was like the world or the universe telling you needed a few days away from the phone, which we probably all do.
Yeah, and that's actually, I had the same thought. I thought maybe I was just overusing my phone for that little bit or something, you know, and maybe it's just time for it to shut down and hey, Leigh, you need to shut off too. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I did a vacation out on a boat we were on the boat for 7 days, and phones didn't work. And I got to tell you, it was refreshing. It was actually refreshing not being able to think about or check the phone. And so it is a reminder that we need to disconnect every once in a while, right? And make that something intentional in our life, that we disconnect here and there.
Regularly, man. We could talk about that too, because it's something that's on top of my mind most of the times.
Yeah. Well, Leigh, this is Live the Goals podcast. So of course we're going to talk about goals. I'd love for you to share your thoughts or maybe some tips or suggestions for our friends and family listening. Well, what are some tools you could suggest for goal setting? Somebody who maybe they've been working on their goals, but they have some difficulty maybe sticking with it. Maybe that's the issue they're having.
Sticking with the goals. Well, mate, if you set a goal and you don't have a strong enough why, it doesn't matter. You're not going to have that motivation. You might have the motivation to start, but you may not have motivation to continue with it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, my first thoughts on that, if you really want to be successful with accomplishing your goals, figure out why you're setting the goal in the first place and really connect deep with that and make sure you really believe that connection. So there's two levels of motivation. And that's the motivation to get started. So that's based on the result that you're going to get from it. So if you look at weight loss, okay, well, I'm going to get up every morning this week to go to the gym because I want to lose weight. So that gives you motivation to get started. The second level of motivation is to actually stay in the task. And that's more intangible. It's not based on a result. It's based on the experience. So once you're in that, like once you're at the gym doing the workout, if you don't have that motivation, if it doesn't feel good, if it's not keeping you there, it's going to be harder to keep it up. So there's two reasons where motivation comes from. So if you connect with the why is it, what's the result, and why is that really important to you? And then what is the thing that you can do that really keeps you persistently doing it? Because that will help you achieve goals. So that'd be my first step towards achieving your goals. I've actually created a guide for people, which is more of a tool. And I believe this comes in setting goals for life or setting goals for a single task, setting goals for the week, whatever it might be. And I call it fast track to effectiveness. So it's just something that I've created because I'm quite an effective dude. Okay, I get things done. I don't know. I've got my own way of doing it, and I think we all need to find our own way of doing it. There's not one real formula to do it. But once you figure it out, you just can get things done quite easy. And I still, stuff up. I still get distracted by Facebook sometimes when I'm in the middle of a task. So there's still things that come into my life, but generally I'm pretty good. So fast track to effectiveness, there's some steps to it. So I'm going to read them out to you.
Yeah, please. That'd be awesome.
So the first one is to visualize, then plan, then prepare, then take action, and then set the routine. Then your goal will come. After you reach your goal, that's when you get the reward. And then after that, you grow. And then you repeat.
Yeah. Wow. And I bet you could talk about each one of those steps. It's so much more goes into each one of the steps, but that is a awesome roadmap. And speaking of roadmap, I did some digging and I think you had something called, forgive me if I don't get it exactly right, the life map or something in that ballpark.
Yeah, I created the ultimate life map.
Yeah. Tell me more about that.
So that's really, the formula that not a formula, I don't like to call that. It's a bunch of concepts that I've come up with that give guidance to living a really good life. And that's what I'm trying to figure out myself. And that's why I've created it so other people can use it to, adapt to their lives. And it's just the concepts that I've learned. Like I delved into personal development and I've spent hours and invested dollars, getting into this industry to figure out what works and what makes a good life. And I'm still figuring it out, man. I'll be honest, I'm still figuring it out. But the ultimate life map is broken up into a couple of segments. One is the life compass. So that's really connecting with your why and then using that to navigate yourself through some of these life principles that I call it. So that's the second part of it.
Right.
To navigate through some of these life principles so that you can live with greater freedom, fulfillment, and happiness. Now, I started on that at the start of the show. And that's what these life principles about. There's 6 life principles, and if you can do the work and find the practices within those principles that matter to you, to matter to your life compass, to your why, then you will live with greater freedom, fulfillment, and happiness. And that's is working for me. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And what phase of that do you think is this most important? I almost don't want to say it that way. But
yeah, I think it's a good question. And it's hard to answer because I think it's all important.
Yeah.
But for your audience that are listening to it, for someone that's not really familiar with it, it's about going to the life compass first. And I'll run you through the life compass. The life compass, I just came up with that term because there was sort of 4 points that sort of I could visualize. So it looked like a compass to me. And I thought, well, that's great. And that makes sense because you use that to navigate yourself through a life. And really the ultimate life map is about getting rid of those maps that society hand us and taking out your own piece of paper and drawing out your own map in life.
Right.
Because the one that society give us, that's a template. Here you go. You follow that and you'll be happy. You'll be fulfilled. You'll be free. And that's a load of rubbish. It just doesn't happen. And that's what I found along my journey. And I know, 85% of the people out there probably can relate. They're on this other map, this other life of expectations that's not their own. And they're just living miserably. And that's what I want to change. So it's about creating your own map. So first is connecting with your why. And I really thought, well, how do you figure out your why? People go, what's my why? How do I figure that out? Well, yeah, why is evolution? It evolves. It keeps building. And over time, as priorities change, as things change, as you experience more, as you learn more, you will grow that and it will change. And that's the same with purpose, your why, your purpose, whatever you might call it. So I had to come up with something that would help people connect with their why immediately so they could start using it immediately to help them navigate their life. So the 4 points in the compass is needs and desires. And I could go into each one of these too with some depth, but we'll just touch on them. Needs and desires, dreams and passions, skills and talents, and core values. So those are the 4 points. And so what the idea is to connect with each one of those, really ask yourself the questions, big life questions, big questions within, do the work, meditate on them, ponder on them, whatever you can, and really just journal down, write down, blurb out as many ideas you can about what those 4 things are to you. And then once you really connect with them, that really creates that why, that significant inner, this is me sort of story that then you can use to take, I call it purposeful action.
Yeah.
I believe, most of us, we just go on this path and then we just take action that best fits that path that we've been given.
Yeah.
And we don't really think about taking purposeful action. So we go about our days just doing things, because it's just what's done. And that's to me a waste of time. It's a waste of a life. So really, if you can connect with your compass, then everything you do from then on can be done with greater purpose. So, when you get up in the morning, what time do you get up and why do you get up and why does that matter to your why? So I get up at 5 o'clock now, and I do that because it matters to my why, because it allows me to do the practices that relate to health. So I do every morning. I get up, and at the moment it's just changed. It was 4:30, and it's just changed to 5 o'clock because I like keeping things fresh. I've just changed it, and so every morning I get to do yoga. I get to do meditation and journaling straight away in the morning, and that really for me is a way to just live in that life. That's one of the life principles, health, to really do the practices within that life principle. And why is health important to me? Because I know if my health is in check, I can do everything else with greater effectiveness. I can really get more clear and figure out, the direction I should be going. So it's really about connecting with that life compass and then using that to take purposeful action. And the big thing about this map is if you had a map that you were given to and you had pitch black, it was middle of the night and you couldn't see where you were going, the map wouldn't be much good, right?
Right, exactly.
So and this is what I figured out in life, to put the lights on your map, you need greater awareness. And this is the thing that I started doing meditation a few years ago. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just read about all these successful people doing it. And I thought, okay, well, if they're all doing it, must be something good. So I just started sitting in my office meditating, not knowing what to do. But over the years, I've read and learnt and listened and kept building my practice to now where I do it 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at night, whatever. It doesn't have to be that spot on, but generally it's about that. And I just simply meditate and become mindful. But I don't just do that sort of meditation. I spend a lot more time in contemplative activities where I can just reflect and think and be in my mind. And that is critical. That's the awareness piece that puts the light on your map so you can get more clear about where you're going. Yeah. And I think everyone needs to do lots more of that. I think we've become consumed by these lifestyles, by this world we live in where we just don't have that time anymore and we're all running around in circles. Yeah. So, really creating that awareness.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. I love how you talk about creating the awareness in your 4 categories, right? In your compass. And by doing that, how that allows you to take that purposeful, intentional actions on a daily basis. Because you're right. If we just kind of go with the flow, we're going to end up somewhere we don't want to be. And it does require that awareness and intentional action on a regular basis to get somewhere different where you actually really will find that true happiness that you're kind of talking about. And this is a complete tangent, but let's go there. You mentioned how early you wake up, and friends and family, I know you don't know this because we're recording this interview at a different time than it's going to air, but it's about 4, 5, or 6 in the morning where he is right now. Leigh is actually in Japan, and you can probably tell by his accent that he's Australian. So Leigh, I'd love to hear just a little bit more about your journey of being Australian in Japan.
Yeah, cool. Hey, look, mate, it's a value of ours as a family. Like I've got my own values, but I sat down with my wife and we did a value session, and that was probably a couple of hours where we just sat down and said, well, what do you like? What do I like? What's our family values? Anyway, we did that. And then a few months later, we were traveling in South Australia, in Tasmania, actually, for 2 weeks. We had a 3-week break, actually. So we were just driving through this beautiful part of Tasmania. Got the 2 kids in the back, so one under 1, and the other one was, 3, I guess, at the time. So we were just cruising through, and I said, look, this is brilliant. And this was not long after I had that fulfillment sort of aha moment on the scooter.
Yeah.
And I just said, look, let's do something that's more aligned, with what we want to do in life. And that's where it came up. I said, let's just travel. That's what we both love. We love to adventure. We love to experience new cultures. We love to learn.
Yeah.
And that all comes with that. So she agreed with me straight away. And that was great, because then I just got onto the emails and made some connections and found a part-time job back here in Japan. So that allowed me to get back into the country. Still doing what I do with the Hidden Why. Actually, it gave me more time to do what I do with the Hidden Why. So it was aligned with that goal as well. And it just gave us that sort of a lifestyle that we wanted. So that's why we're here. We've been here for about a year now. Kids go to a Japanese daycare or kindergarten. So they love it. And mate, that's the experience. That's our journey at the moment. Where we're going next, we're in that stage now where we have to we don't have to make a decision, but we wish to make a decision about what we're going to do at the start of next year. So for this year, we're here. And the reason for that decision is it's around really whether we want to be close to our families, because that's another important value for us both.
Right.
But at the same time, so is the opportunities that can come to our lives and direct the Hidden Why plus our other business opportunities. So we're sort of deciding what to do next. Now that's a hard decision, so I can't give anyone advice on how to make that decision. Because I'm making it myself, man. It's not easy sometimes to juggle between 2 values that, in one sense, we love it here in this country. It's a beautiful country.
Right.
But at the same time, we've got that family desire, and there's benefits, the pros and cons to both. So we're just weighing that up. And plus our child is she's about to reach the age of school. So whether we set her up in a Japanese school or take her home and set her up in Australia school, that's probably the hardest decision to make. Right. For us. So that's our journey, man. That's why we're here.
That sounds awesome. And it's great to hear that y'all are both on the same page, because I'm imagining that there could have been some friction, or it could have got shut down right at the beginning if you said, hey, let's think about this. And your wife wasn't on board. So it's great. And I imagine that has to be just a fantastic experience for your children to get that much exposure at that early of an age. Are they enjoying it?
Yeah, mate. Like at the start, it was a bit hard on the older one, but she loves it now. And they're both starting to speak the language. Wow. Which is really cool. So that's pretty cool. And that's another thing. We'd like them to learn more of it and learn more of the language. Yeah. So there's ways to balance it out where we might be able to stay here and be able to travel home regularly. Yeah. So it's a matter of juggling that and figuring it out.
Well, Leigh, let's we got to make a little pivot here, because we actually have been time's been flying, and so I know I know there's a few things I want to make sure we talk about before we get out of here. And you talked in your intro, I talked about how you were just living that dissatisfied life, and you've turned that around. I'd love to hear about one of your obstacles, one of your really big obstacles that you've overcome in your life, and I get how it may have been a really big obstacle then, but I'd love to hear your obstacle and then what you think about it now that you're looking back at it, because there may be some people listening who are maybe going through that time right now. And I'd love some insight on what those obstacles look like looking back at them, as well as how you got through it.
Good. Yeah. And I thought about this, and to be honest, I haven't had one significant major obstacle that I've sort of overcome and gone through it. There's been an accumulation. There's been obstacles along the way that I've just managed to push through. And there's a number of them. There's not one that really stands out more than the other.
Mm-hmm.
But if I just thought of it then, for everyone, and I think for me included, it's an ongoing obstacle, and the obstacle is the self. It's the limit of the mind of who we are and what we are.
Right.
And the self is what limits us in life. The self is what holds us back. And if we don't spend the time searching the mind, observing the mind, figuring out what this is, we'll be continued to be limited and blocked from really progressing as beautifully as we can on our path.
Yeah.
So I think, if I could say anything, that it's ourselves. We stand in our own way more than anything else. There is nothing. We've got everything within us, I believe. I think we've got everything we need to progress, to live a beautiful life, but we limit ourselves. And, you can look at the inner critic. You can look at, self-judgment, things like that, we're constantly in our way. Our fears, there's so many things, the stories we tell ourselves, the subconscious mind that keeps us trapped in a familiar environment that stops us from, advancing outside that circle of comfort.
Yeah.
There's so many things of the self. So I've learned to overcome that simply through reflecting, meditation, mindfulness practices, really just asking bigger questions, and really just letting go of the attachment to this story that the society tells us that we have to live, the expectation that comes from the externals, and really creating my own path. That's my biggest learning. And that I always feel I'm on another little stepping stone that's about to be a big step to a breakthrough. But mate, it's an accumulation. It's an ongoing learning. Talking about setting goals, I'm just about to do a 28-day challenge because I think we need to keep things fresh. We need to keep challenging ourselves. And I did a 3-month challenge late last year, and I publicly announced that and had a few people join in. And, it was a really incredible, eye-opening challenge. I put a lot on my plate for the challenge, and I failed in a lot of areas. But if I look back, the things that I gained disciplined about, they remained in my life today. And that's really important. And there's things that didn't remain, and I went back to some old, ways that I didn't like. So I'm setting another challenge now, man. And the challenge is again, revolves really around health for me. I'm going on a vegan diet for 28 days.
Wow.
And it's not because I don't like meat. I grew up in a steakhouse. But there's certain aspects of the meat industry and dairy industry that I don't appreciate, particularly the one that is me inflicting suffering on animals. And that sounds very hippie, but if I have to believe that this suffering thing is real and I want to be more happy, then I have to try and do my best to stop inflicting it in other people's lives. And when I say people, I mean conscious beings. Animals are conscious. So
wow,
that's the challenge, man. A vegan challenge. Plus, I'm really looking at getting a bit more self-control and just a few more disciplines, really consistent.
Right.
So there's sort of 3 parts to the challenge. But, man, I think we've all got to keep challenging ourselves. We've all got to keep going and just keep reflecting, keep assessing the mind and figuring out who you are and how that can direct your life, because that'll change everything.
Yeah, and I honestly love that you picked that as the obstacle, all those little small obstacles in yourself, because they say death by 1,000 cuts, right? Or 1,000,000 cuts or whatever it is. I find that sometimes that big, gigantic obstacle that people encounter, especially later in life when you've got maybe a community of friends and family around you, people will rally around you, right? And maybe try to push you and help you through that obstacle. And it's easy for you to see that this is an obstacle. But what you talked about, right? Those little small cuts that self-sabotage, that not thinking you're good enough, or all that self-doubt, all those things. Nobody really jumps in and sees that and helps you and says, oh, you're going through this big issue with self-doubt today. Let me jump in and help you. Because a lot of that's in your mind, and maybe you're not even telling people you're going through that. And so that is a constant battle. And so I love that you picked that as the obstacle that you're facing, because we're all facing that every day. And we just, try to improve and get better at that. So thank you. I appreciate that answer.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. So Leigh, we are at that point where we are winding down, and something I do every show is the hot seat scenario. Are you ready for the hot seat scenario?
Maybe.
I know the title scares folks. I got a feeling you'll knock this out of the park, Leigh. Here's what we got going on.
Right.
I'm going to give you two different people, and you're going to have to choose which one of these people you're going to swap lives with, and you got to pick one, okay? And after you swap lives with the person, just tell us a few of your first few steps that you're going to use to turn this life around. And so here we go. We got person A. Person A is somebody who is, living check to check, works 40 to 50 hours a week, but comes home, kind of tired and drained, and just unwinds, spends maybe 2 or 3 hours watching TV or maybe surfing the internet, social media, things like that. Person B is somebody who is highly compensated. We'll just say $100,000 or $200,000. But literally feels like he's spending all day at work. I mean, he wakes up, goes to work, stays there all day, comes home, gets a nap in, and does it again. Neither one of these people feel like they're living in their why or their purpose, and they both realize they've got to make a change. So which one of these two people are you going to switch lives with, and what are your first few steps to kind of get this ship turned in another direction?
I'll switch. I'll switch lives to the first dude. So what
makes you want to say neither, right?
I was going to say both, because I think it doesn't matter which life it is. Both what you do next is what matters.
Yeah. So the first guy is the guy who's living check to check and spending around 2 or 3 hours a day surfing the internet or watching TV.
Yeah. Look, I'll relate to him, not because I was living check to check, but because, I was working the 50-hour week, coming home, not happy, watching TV, wasting life. So I think the first things, there's a few things we need to do. The first is really connect with your why, and figure out what's important to you in life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that'd be doing a first assessment. And this isn't saying you do in 5 minutes just on the side of the road while you're waiting for the red light to change.
Yeah.
This is something you need to spend a day on, just take a day off and remove yourself from your environment. So your regular environment, go for a hike, assess the mind, then sit down and write notes and just really ask yourself the important questions. For those of you interested, I have a discovery questionnaire at thehiddenwhy.com. They can download it, and it's just a series of questions just to help stimulate that thought and connect with the why. Then I really believe that we need to put more passion into our lives. If we're not happy with our life, it's probably because there's passion missing. And there's people out there saying, you can't live your passions, and that's a load of rubbish. I don't care what they say. If you don't have passion, you're not going to have motivation to get out of bed. If you don't have passion, you're not going to have persistence to be able to continue through. You're going to be struggling in those hard times. If you have passion, you'll push through, man. Because you just love what you do. It's hard to stop people with passion. And you've seen it.
I've absolutely seen it. Yeah,
absolutely. Sit out there all the time. And for what I've read and learned, man, it doesn't matter. Passion is the one thing that will push people through.
Yeah.
You need to find passion. Now, for the guy that's living his life, coming home and watching TV and, just downing himself, feeling drained and stuff like that, he needs to inject some passion into his life. So look at what you love. What are you absolutely passionate about that you could do more of that's more conducive to your happiness than sitting down in front of a TV for 3 hours? Now, I asked myself this question and I had to make some changes. So you have to look at the little things first, change that, and then it'll grow into big things. It'll snowball.
Yeah.
For me, it was injecting passion into my life, and it was increasing my clarity in my mind by waking up a little bit earlier, doing some exercise and doing some meditation. So that was 3 simple things. To increase my passions, I stopped turning off the TV and I started reading in personal development because I love personal development. It's something that I was passionate about. So 3 simple things: wake up a little bit earlier, do some exercise, do some meditation. I did some writing actually, because passion writing. And I also switched off the TV so I could read. So there's a couple of things I did. Very simple things to change. Yeah. Yes, it takes some time to get consistency going there, but that's what I'd recommend. Connect with some passions, inject it back into your life, switch off that doesn't help you, and run with it, man. It'll snowball. For me today, like sitting here 3 years ago, this wasn't my life. I get to get up every morning now. I get to spend my time doing my exercise, my meditation, doing my writing. It's really cool. So
how awesome.
It snowballs.
How awesome. Thank you for playing along with the hot seat scenario. I told you would knock it out the park.
I hope so.
Yeah, you did. Absolutely. And Leigh, before we wrap up, and you mentioned that you've got a free giveaway for folks. What I'd love for you to do before we wrap are 2 things. please give us contact information where we can reach you. I want people to be able to get this discovery worksheet that you've got. And then I'd also love for you to wrap this all up by giving us just a saying, a quote, a mantra, a saying, something you use when you need a little bit extra passion or motivation.
Yeah, cool. I've got a few of them. So I suppose for first of all, people can go to thehiddenwhy.com, check me out there. All my stuff's there. So there's the podcast, obviously. I do some consulting if it's a fit for people that are interested in finding out their why and creating a more purposeful life. Mm-hmm. So they can reach out to me there. There's a link there that they can connect with. There's that discovery questionnaire. Now that's going to get reformatted soon because I've just finished writing my draft for this new book called The Ultimate Life Map. So yeah, if they're interested in what I'm talking about in The Ultimate Life Map, make sure they subscribe so they can keep up to date with the release of the book. Mm-hmm. That's going to be potentially a game with it as well. So yeah, just jump on there, connect with me there. Make sure you check out the podcast. I've also got a YouTube channel, THYTV, so they can check me out there. And mate, connect with me that way. There's Facebook, Twitter, and my email address available there.
Awesome.
So one, I like quotes, and if I could show you my office wall here, you'd see that I'm surrounded with quotes that I love.
Yeah.
And one that really stood out to me recently came from a guy called Andy Andrews. He's got a new book called The Little Things. There you go, Andy. I've given you a plug. It's a really cool little book. But one of the lines in there said, "Perspective is the only thing that can dramatically change the results without changing any of the facts."
Wow.
So if you look at life, it's all a matter of perspective. What you see and what I see can be totally translated in a different way.
Yeah.
And that will affect how we live our lives.
Yeah.
And your perspective will only change if you spend the time in the mind. So there we go. We're coming back to that mind piece again.
Yeah, mindset is so important. And I love that. That is, I love the way that just clarifies the fact that nothing changed but your perspective. And that making that shift in your mindset can change your life. And so it does come back to mindset and perspective.
It's like a muscle, that thing, like perspectives for me years ago, it was here and there. I'm positive, sometimes negative, but as you build it and as you remain focused on the positive perspectives and what you want to, perceive out of the situation, it really, it does. It makes big impact in your life.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Leigh. I appreciate it. This has been a great interview. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for waking up so early in the morning. Well, you were up, but thank you for sliding us into your schedule.
I almost forgot, I'll be honest.
So I'm glad you made it. I'm glad you didn't forget. And friends and family, you know that you can find all the links to the stuff we talked about, links to Leigh's website in the show notes. Just go to the website, livethegoals.com. and type Leigh into the search box. That's Leigh. And as always, this episode of Live the Goals podcast was supported by Audible. So you can go to livethegoals.com/Audible. And there's a deal there for you to get a free month of Audible as well as a free book. So friends and family, thank you so much for joining us again today. Remember to set and reach goals that matter and to live the goals you set.
Thanks for checking out the show today, and make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. We hope you take away something that helps fill your life with purpose and laughter. And make sure you head over to livethegoals.com for more info on guests and resources. Remember to set and reach goals that lead you to a life of purpose and passion.